Good morning, everyone. Today, welcome to the day one of the Sidoti Small Cap Conference. We are here for the presentation of Lilium, and with me, I have the founder and the chief engineer for innovation, Daniel Wingard. We have about 30 minutes today, including the presentation and the Q&A. So, if you have any questions, I request you to submit them at the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. With that, I will hand it over to you, Daniel.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining today. Lilium is Europe's largest electric aviation company with about 1,100 employees and $1.5 billion in funding. We are NASDAQ listed. The company is 9 years old and we are based in Munich in Germany. The mission of Lilium is to create electric regional high-speed transportation by exploiting the benefits of the electric powertrain, such as lower emissions, lower operating costs, and higher comfort. We do this in 2 steps. On the short term, we are using a vertical takeoff and landing electric regional jet, which is going to operate between 0 and 300 kilometers in range. And in a second step, we intend to use the technologies of this aircraft to make larger short-haul electric airliners to then tackle up to about 2,000 kilometers in range with those aircraft. What you see here is the first product we have in development and certification right now. It's a 6-passenger vertical takeoff and landing jet with 1 pilot. It's flying at about 250 kilometers per hour. And with the batteries we have in production right now, it can operate in actual missions around 175 kilometers. What is unique about this aircraft is that it's being certified concurrently with the European regulator, EASA, and the US regulator, FAA, at the same safety levels like a commercial airliner. The aircraft is designed such that it achieves a market-leading low operating price. We think that fully loaded with profit for the airlines and insurance, landing fees, pilot cost, etc., an airline can operate this aircraft at a price of $2 per passenger kilometer. Where we are quite unique is how much we have become a true aerospace company over the last years. We have started like a Silicon Valley technology company, proving out in demonstrators that this technology works. But about 5 years ago, we realized that we have to have a very experienced team in place to actually take that hurdle of a commercial airliner grade certification. So we brought in an incredibly strong team of the best of aerospace management and engineering. It starts with our chairman, the former CEO of Airbus, Tom Enders. Our CEO is the former program head of the Airbus A320 family, which is today globally the most successful airliner. And I could continue like this through the rest of the management, but also through the rest of the team. And this is the main reason why I am incredibly confident that this company will achieve the certification of this novel aircraft and deliver its airplanes to the customers on time. Our business model is very focused and simple. We are a classic aircraft OEM delivering airplanes on the one side. And then on the other side, we have a very comprehensive after-sales support program called Lilium Power On, which makes the full spectrum of digital services and predictive maintenance and other support services. But the core portion of the revenues stems from the replacement of battery packs. One battery pack can do about 2,000 flights, which means roughly once per year, an airline will have to replace the battery packs and purchase a new pack from Lilium. In contrast to operating, for example, the airplanes, this business model here enables a faster time to market, an earlier cash flow positive, and these are the key elements we are focused on right now. In terms of the market size, we are looking at roughly 40,000 eVTOLs sold globally by 2035. This is our own forecast. If you compare this to the numbers on the right side, which are an external forecast we're pretty much on the middle to the lower end of the global forecast here. And we're expecting to have a global market access based on our certification in Europe and in the US. And if you look into the middle columns here, there's a breakdown of the different market segments. And we're expecting only to see about 15% of that global market in the classic air taxi urban market, which is less than 40 kilometers. But the vast majority of up to 85% of that market is going to be the regional market. And this is the market we are mainly targeting and addressing with our aircraft, and where we are uniquely positioned both through the capacity, but also the speed and range of the aircraft to serve this regional market. Why does it make more sense to do this regional market next to the market size? And also the reason why the market size is larger is that there is more time savings achievable. The main reason to use such a product for a customer is to achieve time savings versus ground transportation. And if you compare a classic urban trip of 10, 20 miles to a regional trip, it becomes very quickly obvious that in that regional trip, we can achieve 1 or 2 hours of time saving, versus in the urban trips, very often it's not possible to achieve even 30 minutes of time saving. And our research has shown that if there's less than 30 minutes time saving, people tend to not be willing to actually switch from a ground transportation trip into an airborne trip. And this is why we are focused on those regional trips. If we look at our technology and how we are differentiated, there's basically two technologies in the market. There's the electric jet technology, which we are pursuing. And on the other side, on the right side here on the slide, you see the classic electric propeller technology, which is basically a further development of existing helicopter technology. The advantage of the jet technology is very similar to what you are seeing in commercial airliners. About 95% of all aircraft around the globe are jet aircraft, because they're flying faster, they have more capacity, they're more scalable. Passengers prefer this technology because it creates lower vibrations in the cabin and lower noise emissions. And those larger cabins and scalability in the end is driving better unit economics. This is why this technology is ideally suited for a regional application. And this is why we have pursued this electric jet technology. And here we are globally leading, being the first company having an electric jet aircraft in commercial certification. What you see here is a little bit more a detailed view on this technology. The aircraft features a total of 10 batteries for safety and redundancy, and a total of 30 electric jet engines. And those have the advantage that they are very simple. They have only one moving part. There's no cooling pumps, no variable blade pitch, no heat exchanger, no liquid circuits, etc. So it's an incredibly simple system, which is entirely software controlled, and that makes it easy for the pilot to handle, but it also makes it safer, more reliable, and lower cost to operate. Why should we do electric aviation at all? It's clear to everyone that we have to make aviation sustainable. And there's basically three different types of technology which are competing right now in the market. There's the battery technology, there's green hydrogen, and there's artificial so-called e-fuels or synthetic aircraft fuels, which you see on the right side here. The battery is the most efficient one. If we use a green hydrogen powertrain, we already need 3 times more green electricity to propel 1 passenger mile. And if we use e-fuels, we need up to 6 times more green electricity for 1 passenger mile. And this primary energy efficiency is the main reason why a lot of studies, both internally from us, but also externally, are showing that the battery electric aircraft is both the most cost-effective airplane and at the same time the most environmentally friendly one. But it has limitations on range. While a kerosene-fueled aircraft can fly up to 16,000 kilometers, battery-powered airliners, even in the 2040, 50s, will probably be limited to around 2,000 kilometers in range. But that means we can electrify around 80% of all commercial flights flown today and about 50% of all passenger kilometers flown today. So it's a huge market for this electric technology, which I would say today is still to some degree underappreciated. The battery technology we are using today is a lithium-ion battery technology, which is very similar to what you are finding in premium electric cars. We have down-selected this technology about 4 years ago, went through extensive testing to prove both the safety and the performance. We then went into industrialization together with our partner Customcells here in Germany, who have now a dedicated production line where they are shipping cells to us in a bespoke format. And we are right now in the certification process and testing process of our battery packs, which have been developed at Lilium and which are also in production here at Lilium. The great thing about an electric airplane is that we have designed our aircraft such that we can replace the battery packs in the future without changing the airframe itself. And that means we can capitalize on the annual 6 to 7% of energy density improvements, which we are seeing in the battery sector right now. And that means we can offer to our customers upgrades of battery packs in about 5 years from now, which would enable close to 300 kilometers of operating range. And it will not stop there. That means within a few years, our aircraft can target the entire regional vertical takeoff and landing market based on those battery technology improvements. What you see on this slide is a projection of our engineers assuming a 4.5% annual energy density improvement. So it's more conservative. And you can basically see in the red trace that over time, the range of the aircraft is hitting close to 500 kilometers. And on the blue trace, you see the range of our next target product, which would be an 80 to 100 seat regional electric airliner, which in about 10 years from now would achieve roughly 1,000 kilometers operating range. And then in about 20, 25 years from now, it would be able to hit 2,000 kilometers or about 50% of all passenger kilometers globally. How are we commercializing this first product now? We are targeting two markets. The first one is the premium market, where we are replacing existing executive helicopters and business jet flights. And the second one is what we call the mass market, in which airlines operate feeder flights or intercity flights with this airplane. The premium market is significantly smaller than the airline market, but it comes with the advantage that it's an existing market with existing pilots, customers, and infrastructure, and it generates earlier cash flows, higher pre-delivery payments, and higher margins for us. So it's an ideal market, and in this market, Lilium at the moment is globally more or less alone in terms of offering a premium electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft to private individuals and premium operators. On the right side, we are capitalizing on the low operating cost and the high capacity of the aircraft. With 6 passengers in the cabin, we have the leading capacity and the largest aircraft in the sector with, to our knowledge, the best economics. On the left side here, you see a picture of the premium cabin. It's very spacious, comparable to a business jet cabin, much more spacious, more comfortable, and less noisy than a helicopter. And on the right side, you see the 6-passenger seating configuration, which is comparable to a premium economy class with very large windows and a lot of leg space. We're also intending to offer the aircraft as a cargo version and a patient or medical transportation version. And those basically further enlarge the market, and we clearly see demand for those both solutions. What you see here is a view of the global customer landscape we have right now. It's basically a 50-50 mix between the two segments in premium and airline across all the three major continents from the Americas, Europe to Asia. And notably, the largest customers here are Saudia in the Middle East and NetJets, Urban Link and Bristow in the US, and Azul, for example, in Brazil. We have a total of close to 800 pre-orders, which makes up about a $6 billion order book. And out of those, more than 100 aircraft are firm orders. And this means we are also the leading company in the sector at the moment in terms of having binding contracts. What does that mean? In a binding contract, we commit to the customer a delivery date, a performance of the aircraft, and operating cost. And in return, the customer is committing, among other things, to a pre-delivery payment plan, which means there is some payment upon signature, and there's further payment milestones, for example, upon the first flight of the aircraft or the certification of the airplane. And those pre-delivery payments are one important leg of the stool when it comes to financing the remaining part of the aircraft program. I mentioned before we have established an after-sales support organization, which is called Power On. This is the first support organization in the eVTOL sector, which comprehensively covers everything from service centers to digital services, engineering services, training, ground equipment, and a global 24 hours customer support. And this is one of the key elements which is making us successful in selling our airplane to airline customers and others, because we know there is not only an aircraft required, there's also a lot of support required for a customer to successfully operate such an airplane and actually make revenues and profits. We have a very strong set of partners on the infrastructure side. Ferrovial, for example, in Florida, on the German side, Fraport, Lufthansa, the airport of Munich. And we also have a strong set of partners on the aircraft operations. I'm going to pick out Lufthansa Aviation Training here, which have been for the last 3 years establishing a world-class training program for the pilots to make sure that we also have pilots who can operate the aircraft and who can have the right type rating for the aircraft by the time we do the first deliveries. We are, since autumn last year, an accredited aerospace design organization here in Europe. And this means after 4 years of auditing, we have proven to the regulator that we have the processes, the development processes, but also the quality management and the skill in place to design, manufacture, and certify electric vertical takeoff and landing airplanes. And this gives us a number of rights in the certification process, which in the end means that we can take more of that certification effort and burden on our own payroll, and that makes it to some degree independent of the capacities of the regulator and helps us speeding up the certification process of the aircraft. We have started the final assembly of our first certification prototype in winter last year. We have a total of about 175,000 square foot of manufacturing capacity here in Munich. And this capacity includes a final assembly line for our airplanes, an engine assembly line, and a battery assembly line, plus a final delivery and warehouse environment. And this means we have the equipment in place to also do a low rate serial manufacturing of our aircraft. And this is important because those first airplanes, which we have in production right now, they are being used for the certification. They are conforming aircraft, and those have to be produced with the same traceability, quality management, and manufacturing processes like the serial airplanes. Otherwise, they would not be being possible to be used for the actual certification credit in the process. We have closed a supply chain for the aircraft, which is an incredibly strong tier 1 aerospace supply chain. Why are we focusing so much on this? Well, we think that Our strategy is to exploit the capabilities of those tier one aerospace suppliers because they have decades of experience in certifying those technologies and systems which they are delivering into the aircraft. And this enables us to achieve a high reliability, a high degree of safety, and a smooth scale up once the aircraft is on the market. So there's a lot of names you will recognize, like Honeywell, Denso, Collins Aerospace, GKN, and others. And what is important here is that many of those suppliers are not only supplying into the program, but they are risk-sharing partners. This means they have done due diligence on our business case, on the technology, and our company. And they have, after this, concluded that it is worth for them to invest into the program and take a portion of the risk in the program. And I think that's a great testament to electric aviation, but also to their belief in us as a company, because they probably know best. They are from the sector. We are using a state-of-the-art development environment, which is a classic aerospace development process, starting with digital tools like simulation, numerical tools, even GPU clusters. We're then moving on to a pyramid of testing, where we have a broad set of testing capabilities directly in-house, which starts from single component tests like coupons for the structure or components like an engine fan, and it builds up the whole pyramid to system integration labs like our electric power system lab, and then continues to wind tunnel testing, and finally, of course, the king's discipline, the actual flight testing of airplanes. And here in the flight testing, we have tested 5 generations of aircraft. Over a total of 5 years, we have tested full-size eVTOLs with about 1.5 tons of weight. You see on the bottom left our dedicated test center in Spain, where we currently have 2 of our airplanes. And this flight testing has enabled us over many years to mature the technology and to really master the different challenges, from the software control of the aircraft to improving the weight and performance of engines and batteries. And we have really tested all the core elements here, down to even failures of systems such as severe engine failures or control system failures in flight. And this is giving us the confidence and the knowledge of maturity that the aircraft we have now in production for certification will meet the certification requirements. We currently have 2 of these airplanes in our final assembly line here in Munich. We will soon start the 3rd one, and there'll be a total of 7 aircraft which we are producing for the certification campaign over the next 12 months. And we are then targeting the first delivery to our customers in the second half of 2026. I mentioned before, we are in a dual certification with the European regulator and the US regulator. And the big difference here is that the European regulator is targeting an airliner safety level, whereas the US regulator, here in yellow, is targeting a general aviation safety level, which is lower. That means companies like us, having a European certification as the prime regulator, can sell globally in the blue part of the map, in the yellow part of the map, and in the hatched part of the maps. If you certify in contrast to that in the US, such as some of our competitors are doing, you cannot sell in the blue part of the map, and also partially not in the hatched part of the map. So that means it gives us a unique advantage in terms of global market access by enveloping the safety standards of all those countries around the world. What is up next? As mentioned before, we will deliver the first airplane this year. This will then start the ground testing. In the winter, we target to obtain the permit to fly, and we're then targeting the first piloted flights for certification early next year. Then there will be about 15 to 18 months of flight testing with a total of 6 aircraft, and the first deliveries to our customers are targeted for the second half of 26. And that also means that a large portion of pre-delivery payments obviously will come in 25 and 26, helping to finance the program. But this is not the only element. We are also working in detail with the German and French government on loans. With the German government, we are looking at a 100 million euros convertible loan. And with the French government, we are in discussions of a 200 million euros loan to fund an expansion of our industrial capabilities, an additional factory which will be based in France. And this, together with the pre-delivery payments, will be the backbone of further funding the program over the next 2 years. We also have a very strong set of existing investors, just picking some of them here on the map, and they continue to invest over more than 5-6 investment rounds, and they're committed to further invest into the program over the next 2 years. If we look at the valuation of Lilium and compare us to our peers, we are at the moment in a unique position in terms of being undervalued, and this is mainly due to the perceived short cash runway. So we expect that at the moment, with inflection points coming up both on the public funding side, but also in terms of the first conforming certification aircraft flying in winter, that now is a great time to invest in the company and basically take the upside of those upcoming inflection points. And with this, I'm finalizing and finished with the presentation. I would open the floor if there is some questions in the audience. Aishi, you may want to hand over to the audience.
Sure. Thank you so much for the presentation, Daniel. It was really great knowing about the company. And I would request everybody in the audience, if you have any questions, please submit them at the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Until then, I can start with a few questions that I have. So I know we're not there in terms of revenue yet, but like, what do you think is going to be the aftermarket sales as a percentage of revenue? And like for the margin profile, what are we looking at, like aftermarket versus the OEM sales?
So initially, of course, the OEM will dominate because we have to at first build a fleet in the market. But especially as we have the airlines coming in, buying airplanes maybe from 27 onwards, which highly utilize the aircraft, there'll be a high demand for battery replacements and other aftermarket services. And hence, we're expecting over time that the aftermarket makes almost 50% of the total revenue of the company. So by 2035, we have announced that we're expecting about 5 billion in revenue coming from that aftermarket segment. And by being in the printer and cartridge business, we expect to have especially a stable revenue, which is also more robust against different types of crises and up and downs in the sector. Because basically, as long as the fleet is operating, there will be revenue.
Got it. And can you talk about the profit margin? Like, what is the operating profit going to be on every flight sold, like every aircraft sold?
So obviously, we cannot give exact numbers here. This would be,
Yeah,
from
no,
a competitive
definitely.
perspective, challenging. But it's a decent double-digit margin. And the margin in the premium segment tends to be higher than in the airline segment. But the airline sales are still very attractive because on the other side, the utilization there is higher, which means over the lifetime of the aircraft, there is more revenues made on the aftermarkets with the airline sales.
Right. And also, we spoke about manufacturing some parts, whereas doing a lot through strategic partnerships. When it comes to the aftermarket sales and the battery production, will Lilium be manufacturing those, or will that be going through strategic partnerships?
At the moment, we are manufacturing the battery packs ourselves, and our target is also to do so in the future. But this doesn't exclude that there might be an attractive partner for us to bring on board for the battery manufacturing in the future. At the moment, the plan is to have multiple battery pack plants around the globe to then basically being able to serve the customer with very close proximity.
Right. And we have a question which from the audience, which is asking about, do you give Any uptime guarantees for available passenger minutes per day?
We are giving guarantees in terms of performance, maintenance, and operating cost of the aircraft. If it comes to the passengers per day, this is ultimately in the hands of the operator because, in contrast to some of our peers, we are not operating the aircraft ourselves. And this gives us the huge advantage that we can partner with anybody around the globe, and we're focused on the high margin part. We are focused on that part of the business model where we have our strong suits, and especially we have an earlier profitability by receiving pre-delivery payments from our customers. If we went for operating ourselves, we would have to raise at least 1 billion on top, maybe more. And even then, it would be difficult to be a really strong operator in any location around the globe.
Right. And can you give us, like, can you talk about the potential competition? And also, are there any advantages to being of the first few entrants into the market to being a second follower, or do you think it is the other way around?
Well, of course, there's pros and cons to being the first mover, or there's also second mover strategies. We think there's a big advantage for us being the first in the segment because we have a head start on IP, we have a head start on technology, we have a head start in covering different markets, and we see this right now in terms of the sales demand for the aircraft, that this is really attractive, and it obviously helps the margins of our business over the first couple of years, that we can achieve significantly better margins being such a first mover. If it comes to competition in the eVTOL sector, there's multiple companies around the globe. I would say 6, 7 maybe, which we are considering serious contenders, but there is none at the moment with the capabilities we have. There is no 6-seat eVTOL, there is no regional eVTOL. We're the only jet eVTOL, and we're the only eVTOL in the premium segment, which is why we tend to say we have competitors if it comes to talent and funding, but we don't really have a competitor right now, which we are facing in our sales campaigns.
You're right. Okay. That's very insightful. Thank you so much for your time today, Daniel. We're over time, but yeah, thank you so much. And we really appreciate your time here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great questions.